Hello, it's me, Heather Jo Flores. I wanted to talk some more about the hero's journey and the heroine's journey, and to take that a step deeper into, what's the difference between a hero's journey and a heroine's journey. This is something that I've been studying for a really long time, and it's something that I've been thinking about a bunch lately. So, if you're studying with me, you have already had this introduction to metamorphosis in the hero's journey, and you've already had a chance to look at your own story and to play with what it might look like on that trajectory. Whichever system you feel more comfortable with, if you want to go, in a line, or you want to go in a circle, or maybe a little bit of both, that's totally fine. You have to go with what works for you. One thing for me is that it was a really big shift for me in my life when I stepped into the role as the protagonist of my own story. And that's one of the reasons that I became so enamored with this hero's journey, heroine's journey formula. And I think it's one of the reasons that so many people are studying it and learning it is because it feels really good to really own the role as protagonist of your own story. And in the archetypes video, I talked about how that role, you don't have to be in the hero archetype to be the hero of your own story, or the heroine. So I want to talk a little bit more about the difference between a hero and a heroine, and about why these formulas are so effective, not just in telling stories. I mean, when you're telling stories, this stuff is indispensable. If you're going to be a writer, then you want to understand how to take your readers on an adventure. But also, if you're on a journey of self-discovery or self-improvement, or if you're building a business, or if you are designing a garden, there's so many layers that can be applied with this same mythical journey, because we love a transformation. And if you think about it, you can sit there with your hero's journey trajectory, and you can look at your garden, and you can think about what happened there, and you'll see each plant is their own hero. So going back to what I was saying a minute ago about becoming the protagonist of my own story, what happened was that when I looked at my story, I saw that I was frequently in a role as mentor or muse or, best friend. I mean, I was seeing myself in these supporting roles in the story. There's nothing wrong with being in a supporting role, but in your story, you need to be the hero. My goal here with everything that I do is not to be your hero. My goal is to help you realize that you are the hero. And, even as a writer, the writer is the narrator, obviously, is the true protagonist in the whole situation. So I think it's really fun to think about this stuff and to play with it and to see if shifting your perspective or deepening your perspective in these ways can help you on whatever path you're on. So I made some notes, and I want to just do a little bit more discussing about this hero versus heroine, because they're sort of two sides of the same coin, and Maureen Murdoch has done a bunch of work on the heroine's journey, and I studied her at length in grad school. And one thing that didn't really work for me with the way she was approaching this was that there was so much emphasis on masculine and feminine. We depart from the feminine to find our way in the world. And that to me is really still very much grounded in patriarchy and the need for male approval, which is something that I just don't have or feel, and something that I don't want y'all to feel. If there's someone that you care about in your life and you want their approval, then that's healthy. But if you've never met someone and you feel like you need their approval, then I see that as a self-destructive pattern, and it gives people power over you that they haven't earned. So this is part of what drew me to this heroine's journey approach, is that I was looking for alternatives and I was finding them, but I wasn't finding anything that really felt like, oh no, okay, ding, and then I wrote my own thesis on it and I did my own research on it. And so my thesis moves the heroine through an emotional cycle, same as Maureen Murdoch, but my cycles are a little different. So for me, same as with a hero, everything starts with illusion, the status quo, the illusion of comfort, except that you're not comfortable, you're not safe, you're not happy, and you want something. you know? And I mean, this is where the journey begins. You know, if you are comfortable and happy and safe, then, you know, you're probably not watching this video. But the hero and the heroine, and I'm going to get to this notion of duality in a moment, both start in the status quo. And they both start with this illusion that this is the way life is. But they sort of know that it isn't. And the hero, I don't want to say masculine. Let's just say it's you know, even like dark and light implies that, you know, because we vilify dark in our culture. So I'm not going to say dark and light. I'm just going to say the hero and the heroine, okay? So the hero's catalyst starts with a desire, something that he wants. And the heroine's catalyst starts with a curiosity. You know, in my version that I wrote, she is curious. She has a question. And so these are the subtle differences. It's the difference between a journey and a quest, you know, question. And in my Decolonize Yourself creative immersion, you know, when we get into phase 5, it starts with that question. Again, you know, what archetype are you going to use as your tool? What archetypes are you going to embody? What feels right for you? And how are you going to use that to propel yourself forward to your question? What is your primary inquiry? And how can you learn about it? So then going back, so then the hero in the beginning, that question is met with a catalyst, you know, or that desire is met with an opportunity, and then a refusal, and then the catalyst, which forces the hero to accept the challenge and go into the special world. This is the classic formula. But for me, in the heroine's version, it's more like there's this curiosity, and, you know, because women tend to be more limited in our options, we have a curiosity, we pose our question, and are usually immediately shot down. So the refusal comes from outside. It's not, you know, in the classic hero's journey, you know, which I have argued and many have argued upholds patriarchal construct. In the classic hero's journey, the man or the woman who is acting a lot like a man, using violence to solve her problems, let's say, has a desire. That desire is immediately met with an opportunity, and the hero says, no, I can't do it. But in the heroine's journey, the refusal comes from outside of herself. No, you can't do it, okay? And that to me is really one of the fundamental differences. And then the next stage for both is to say, okay, but I am going to do it anyway. And so with the hero side, an ultimatum is presented, in that he's not able to refuse the call because his mom's life is at stake or something. But with the heroine's version, what I think is that catalyst, that she just pushes. She says, no, I do get to find out. I do have the right to know, and I am going to propel myself forward with my curiosity. So the resistance is met with persistence, rather than on the hero's version, this sort of like begrudged answer to the call, you know? And so it's where it begins, where it comes from, that to me is the core of the difference between the two, and the core of the difference between a story, whether it's a lived story or a told story, that perpetuates and enables patriarchy, and a story that rebels against it. So this is, you know, what we're looking at, and it is deeply political. And one could say that the hero's approach is a colonizer approach. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get this thing, and it's for me, and I'm going to prove that I'm worthy. Versus a non-colonizing approach, which is, I'm just curious about this thing, and I'm not going to hurt anybody, but I'm curious, and I want to explore. So this is, they're both in search of transformation, and they both lead to transformation. But our heroine realizes that she does not have to slay any dragons in order to provoke her own transformation and protect her people, that she can actually innovate a new way to solve the problem. And whereas the hero is just sort of doing the same thing, swashbuckling his way through to triumph, you know, so again, you know, with the subtle differences, he's using violence, he's on a mission to change himself and save somebody. She's not using violence. She's on an exploration to transform not just herself, but the world. So it's complex. And here's the thing, we need both, because without the dark there can be no light, without the light there can be no dark. There has to be a balance. So I am not in any way, even though I know it sort of sounds like it, but I'm not trying to vilify the hero or the masculine, and I'm not trying to exalt the heroine or the feminine. There has to be a connection, because we can teach each other stuff, because sometimes you need violence. Humans are violent people. The universe is a violent place, so cultivating a goal of absolute nonviolence is to spend your life chasing the impossible. Every time you breathe, you kill bacteria. Every time you scratch yourself, every time we eat, every time we go anywhere, this is okay with me. If it's not okay with you, that's okay with me. But the thing is, my message here is not that an absolute nonviolence is the only way. That is a message that has been said, and that's not my message. My message is, can we solve our problems with nonviolence? And this is the question that I will leave you with. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say at this time. I'm trying to keep these videos, these lecture videos, kind of short. And if you are working with me I'm making this video for a couple of different courses. But if you are working with me in the Decolonize Yourself course, then this is the beginning of our travel phase, our second to last phase in the course. And you've come a long way. And you spent a month ago, we first played with this metamorphosis, this hero's journey, and I asked you to work on your own story and to put it into that framework. So now again, peel back a layer, look at it, and see if you can deepen that, and see if these formulas, these ideas can help you move further. Oh, real quick, before I do close out, I want to finish the trajectory. So the hero, we've gone through this a bunch, okay, and the hero continues barreling his way through. He slays a beast, he realizes there's another beast, he downward spiral, the bad guys regroup, he finds a strength from within, he slays the final beast, and he triumphs, and then goes back to the beginning, usually with some sort of cliffhanger for the sequel. The heroine goes through the resistance, she persists, which is funny that I wrote that before the meme came out, and she gets to a stage where she realizes that she needs to grieve, and this is what we've been doing on this Decolonize Yourself mission, is we've spent time in reconciliation, and then she goes to a place where she realizes that her power is in gratitude, and is in being grateful for herself, in tapping into her deepest flaws, being grateful for the world outside of herself, that which she does not understand, and travel, which is the next phase of our immersion, is a really great time to get in touch with that gratitude phase, so that we can move forward into sovereignty, into having control over our bodies and our minds, and into having mastery over the work that we put into the world. So this is where we're moving toward. And if you're working with me on a writing class, then again, this is where we're working toward. This is where I am encouraging you to take your heroine, so that we can start to create stories and demonstrate stories and walk a path and set an example of a culture that does not seek patriarchal approval and yet still thrives. Okay, so that's it. Have a great day.